mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about episode 5 of the Showtime limited series Dexter New Blood, entitled Runaway. The title is actually kind of a somewhat clever double entendre. We have obviously the runaway portion with Harrison. After Dexter reveals that he doesn't really trust him, Harrison decides that he's going to bail altogether. So he's technically a runaway, and the title is spelled as one word, runaway. So it's directly referring to Harrison, but also indirectly, if you put a space in there, you also get the words that Kurt tells the girl with the green hair that he captured. He tells her to run away, and she doesn't. She runs toward him and gets her head blown off. And it was a pretty cool scene, actually. I'm really interested with Kurt. I'm going to start just by talking about him a little bit because I'm curious what his thing is. And when I say what his thing is, he's super nice like 95% of the time until he's capturing runaways and killing them for sport. And I'm wondering what part of his deal requires the running away part. He can't just he had no intention, he had no desire to kill this girl in any way other than shooting her in the back when she runs away. He didn't want to kill her in the room. He didn't want to look at her taking her clothes off. I did. He didn't. Man, she was thick. But he didn't want to look at her taking her clothes off. And then when she decides to run toward him and he shoots her, he completely panics and freaks out. So I'm wondering what his deal is and why he's so, why he needs that, like, I have to be super nice 95% of the time. And that could be to offset how bad he is on the other 5% of the time. But how it works in concert with this desire to only shoot people as they're running away. I wonder what that's about. But this episode, I thought it had a couple of really good moments like that one. But those good moments were vastly outnumbered by some pretty bad scenes here. This episode I had a lot of problems with this one. There's a whole lot of stuff. This episode really stretches the limits of plausibility here. There's a whole lot of stuff that just so happens to take place in a way that helps the characters or helps further the story, and it's a little bit too much, a little bit too coincidental, and a little bit too much, stretching the limits of implausibility. There's when I was thinking about this episode, maybe 2 or 3 things came into my mind about stuff that I raised an eyebrow at during the episode. And when I was actually compiling my notes for the video, I think I listed 5 or 6 things. So there was a lot of problems I had with this episode. I'm going to start there. I'm going to talk about the good stuff too. It's just much less in quantity than the bad stuff. But I'm going to start with the bad stuff for once because it's not just that it's bad. It's the fact that this episode relied heavily on these scenes, and I just did not buy them. So I want to start with Dexter chasing down this Miles kid, the kid who sold the drugs to the teenagers that were at the party that Harrison was at, where Harrison OD'd. Dexter's at the hospital with Harrison, and he runs into Logan. That's the black male cop that works with Angela. And, Logan tries to give him a little bit of a pep talk or whatever. Dexter snaps at him, but he finds out that, all Logan says is they bought the pills from a kid who sells fake oxy out of a dive bar, and all they have is a first name, Miles. So somehow, despite the fact that the police don't even have a good lead on this guy, they apparently don't even know the name of the bar or the last name of the kid. Somehow, Dexter, there's no scene of Dexter doing research or anything like that. Dexter just pulls up to the exact bar he's at the exact time he's there. The guy just so happens to walk right up to him. It was way too perfect. And I'm sitting when Dexter pulled up to the bar, I'm like, where is he? And then when I realized he was at the bar looking for Miles, I'm like, how does he even know where this bar is, let alone, is this the only dive bar in town? Because they got the bar that he goes to already. And it's a small town, so I would think that would be the only bar there. But clearly there's another one. which leads me to believe there could be 4 or 5 bars. Who knows? But if there was only the one other bar, how come the police don't know about it and Dexter did? So like somehow Dexter beats the police to this bar, and that just really just did not work for me. And then he goes outside and he starts to syringe the guy to put him out for the kill. And the police pull up, and then Dexter fakes, Dexter, he doesn't fake like he's fighting him. He does beat him up, but I'm thinking like the cop car didn't see him being Dextery when they pulled up. like it was cut in a way to where you wouldn't think about that. But I'm thinking like, okay, they walked outside. Dexter was facing the street, like where the police were coming from, while Miles is digging around in the trunk. He pulls out the syringe, facing the direction that the cops ultimately come from. And then he turns around, he goes over there, he starts to do the plunger, and then the police pull up. I'm like, the police should have, at the very least, seen him walking up to someone who had their back turned, at the very least. But they also probably should have seen him doing his little syringe thing at the neck, or even pulling out the syringe in the first place. That's a minor thing, but again, like this episode has a lot of things that I felt really stretched the plausibility. I'm going to stop saying that because I've said it like 3 or 4 times now. But yeah, there's a lot. So I also didn't like Dexter going to that veterinarian. He goes to this veterinarian and says, he tells this basic lie. My goat hurt his leg. I want to give him something for the pain. And then she conveniently just goes, yeah, go through all my drugs and take whatever you want and I'll bill you later. That's how things work in small towns. You can just go to the doctor's house and just take all the drugs you need and then pay for it. And then it's stupid because Dexter took all the stuff he would need for a kill. How does that not get traced back to him? Like, I feel like that's he's just bad planning on Dexter's part. So yeah, I didn't like that either. Another thing, while I was very, very happy to see Batista, he's like one of my favorite characters from the original series. So it was really great to see him. And I was really pleased with that. The idea, before I even talk about this, what bothers me a lot too is I don't understand how things get from stuff this bad gets from concept to my screen. Like, someone wrote this and thought it was okay. People read this script and thought it was okay. They had probably a dry run where they sitting around the table, a table read. They probably had a table read and thought this stuff was okay. They filmed it and thought it was okay. There's so many hurdles to overcome from from conceiving a concept to me actually seeing it on the screen. And they just cleared all those hurdles, I guess, whatever headcanon they needed to do to wrap their head around why this works and why fans should buy it. I don't know how they got there, but this thing went over a lot of hurdles to get before me. And I can't believe no one stopped it earlier. But while I was happy to see Batista, the idea that a Miami cop would just so happen to be at a missing persons conference in New York at the same time as Angela that's a lot. And here's the thing. The Batista thing could be looked at as fan service, right? Like, because I stand out for it. I was like, oh shit, it's my guy Batista. Like, I was happy for it. But Easter egg kind of stuff, that kind of fan servicey stuff, a lot of times it doesn't impact the plot in any way. It's like a thing you see in the background, or almost like a wink at the fans, like, this one thing, and it's always irrelevant. But this one thing with Batista completely changed the dynamic of the show. Like, it was massively important, because without Batista mentioning Dexter, Deb, and Harrison, without him mentioning that, like that's another thing. Like, not only was he there, not only did he actually end up talking to Angela, but he also brings up Dexter, Deb, and Harrison. Like, it was a lot. And they put all those pieces together, I guess, in a way that they thought I would accept as plausible, which I do not. They put all this together just so they could move, like that. This is how they figured out how to get Angela on Dexter's case, to figure out that he's not Jim Lindsay and that he's Dexter Morgan. This is how they did that. And I can't believe somebody wrote this and they all read it and they all filmed it and they all thought, like, the audience will accept this as plausible. It's ridiculous. Like, there's way too many convenient things that happen to get Angela to this place. And I'm surprised they didn't try again. Wrote that and then go, this is a little bit too implausible. Let me try to find a different way here. And they didn't. And yeah, that really bothered me. Another thing about this is like the fourth thing already. Another thing that bothered me is after Angela and the podcaster girl, I forget her name, discover that Matt was not actually at that hotel because they see the video footage and they see it's someone else. When they're walking away, Angela goes, "Why would Kurt lie?" And my immediate thought was, you should not have arrived at Kurt having lied yet. Only thing Kurt said to them was that he video chatted with Matt. They found out that he wasn't there because they chased his credit cards. That's not something Kurt told them. It's not like Kurt said, he's at this hotel, at this place, go find him. Like, they found him because they traced his credit cards and saw that he was at, his credit card had been used at whatever this hotel was. Now, we know that Kurt is lying, but just because them chasing down their credit cards his credit cards helped them find out that Matt wasn't actually at that hotel, does not mean that Kurt is lying when he says that he video chatted with him. Like, you can't connect those two things. And I think this is a case of like they got a little bit too big for their britches here in the writing, because we know that as the third party observers of the show, but within that world, that shouldn't be enough to tell them that Kurt lied. So I feel like they dropped the ball on that one too. Harrison's getting a little bit too teenage angsty for me. This is like a minor little quibble. And the thing is, he has a very valid, unique form of teenage angst based on his very unique issues. But I don't know. I feel like I don't really need to see that in every single thing that features a teenager, that with them being like how teenagers are. Like, we know that's how teenagers are. You don't have to portray it in every single thing with a teenager. And the whole thing of my dad doesn't believe me, so now I'm going to go drink and do drugs with the bullies and pretend like all this stuff's not weird. Like, that was a bit much. That was a bit overacted, especially since he did it. Like, it's not like he's innocent and Dexter accused him of something he didn't do. Like, he did it. So, like, why are you tripping like that? That was a little bit too weird too. And then the last thing is the implausibility of how Dexter escaped at the end from that final attempt to kill I think his name was Jacob, the guy who was making the drugs. From the very beginning of this, it's already weird because they show Dexter walking out of the car after talking to Deb, and he's walking toward the house. Then it cuts to him climbing into a window, into a bathroom. And I'm like, okay, already I'm thinking this is kind of weird because, like, we know the guy is in the house. He could be anywhere in the house because Dexter doesn't know where he's at in the house. Dexter, like, confidently went into through this bathroom window, and he's like, changing his gloves and like, I'm like, why is he like? It's like he knew he was behaving like he knew where the guy was to know that the guy wouldn't be where where Dexter was at. I know that's worded funny, but Dexter was behaving in a way where as if he was certain there was no way that Jacob could come into that bathroom. And then Dexter's walking around, sneaking around, and then I realize he's upstairs. How did he broke into the house on the top floor? Like, did he bring a ladder with him? Like, that was so weird. Like, I'm like, wait, how's he going downstairs? Like, did he climb up the side of the house to go into this bathroom window, which very well could have been the room that the guy was in the first place? Like, that was all. So already I'm sitting here like trying to get my bearings. Like, where is he at right now? Like, what did he come in through the top floor? Like, what is happening? So then he gets the guy captured, gets his kill room set up, and just as he's about to do the deed, Logan pulls up, and Dexter sees Logan outside. He freaks out, and then the next thing we know, Dexter's putting drugs up the guy's nose, and then right after that, the cops break in and they find him there dead. And I'm like, you mean to tell me, you want me to believe that in the time between when Logan pulls up and the cops come into that house, Dexter found these drugs, put them up the guy's nose, tore down his whole kill room, put the guy's clothes back on, moved him to a different room, and got out of the house and back into his truck. All in that time frame. You want me to believe that? You want me to believe that? You think I'm a fucking idiot? Like, what was that? So, like, man, this episode really insulted my intelligence. Like, you want me to think that he did all that? Like, even if we're thinking, like, Logan pulled up to the house and he said, you know, he called for backup and he had to wait for backup to arrive, I still think you're stretching it. You're still stretching it. That he could tear down his whole kit, all that plastic everywhere, put the guy's clothes back on. He's unconscious, so you got to drag him, put the guy's clothes back on, move him to a different room, get out of a different window to his truck, which was parked across the street. Like, oh man, that was nuts, man. But yeah, 16 minutes in the video, I'm finally done talking about all the shit that I hated about this episode. But some of the stuff I did like. I like the opening conversation between Dexter and Deborah because I feel like it frames fatherhood in a different light because you have two different arguments here. Dexter's leaning toward wanting to open up to Harrison about who he is and what happened with him and what he does to almost kind of like be what Harry was to him to Harrison. Deborah is saying, don't do any of that. He can't know who you are. You are a monster. And what made that argument interesting is that there is no right or wrong answer because there's not a history of serial killers who have kids that grow up to also be potential serial killers. And he was a serial killer with this code and all, like Dexter is these are incredibly unique circumstances. You know, he's he's not a former cop, but he, formerly worked for the police. He only kills people who had gotten away with crimes, and he was there when his mother died. Now, Harrison kind of mirrors that, being there when Rita died, all this kind of stuff, right? Very unique set of circumstances. So there is no right or wrong here. Like, you don't know how to do this because there's no precedent in parenting for how you as a serial killer raise your kid who is struggling to come to grips with his serial killing himself. Like, there's no way to do that. So I thought that was an interesting scene because both were very passionate about wanting to do what's best for Harrison. Both have different ideas on how to do that. And both could be potentially, not both can't be right, but both options could be right. Like there's no definitive, this is the wrong way to handle this. And I thought that was it was interesting because it made me think that, like, okay, well, there's really no way to know for sure what the best way to handle this is because we know what happened with Dexter, but Dexter didn't have anybody because Harry was dead. So like he didn't have, like Dexter made a good point about like, Harrison doesn't have to deal with the loneliness that I did. And that's valid. So I while I was sitting here reflecting on the merits of being like a serial killer coach for your serial killer son, I thought that was an interesting it was interesting that the show brought those thoughts into my mind. So I thought that was a really great scene. I also liked the scene where Logan interrogates Miles. Like, that was a really good scene. And then, like, Dexter put the exclamation point on it by saying, like, damn, Logan, even I'm intimidated. Like, because that's how I'm sitting there looking at it like, man, he's going pretty hard right now. So I thought that was a really cool scene as well. So I'm going to close with a couple of thoughts. These are kind of like questions almost, but you can tell me what you think in the comments. So I mentioned a moment ago that they can't, assume that Kurt was lying just off the fact that Matt's not using the credit cards. But this does beg the question, who is that guy? How did he get Matt's credit cards? Like, did Kurt give them to him? Because that would be foolish. Yeah, I'm wondering how he got the credit cards. I'm assuming Kurt gave them to him, but I don't know. I don't know. What was up with that? Did anyone else find the scene weird where Harrison's already high and he goes to the kitchen and this girl asks her to like carve his initials into her foot? Like, one, that was weird enough alone, but then he starts to do it and she totally freaks out. And I'm like, why are you freaking out over him doing what you just asked him to do? Like, you didn't think you thought it was an okay decision 5 seconds ago. Now it hurts, and you just like, oh man, I don't know what I was thinking. How could a knife to the foot hurt? Like, what the fuck? And then I don't know why this scene made me laugh, but because it's not meant to be funny. But after Dexter basically tells Harrison like it's therapy, school, and home for you, and then he says, I'm about to go, and we find out that he's going to try to do a kill. After he leaves, Harrison gets up and defiantly throws his breakfast plate included into the trash. And I thought that was so interesting because I'm like, wow, they like that was so cool how he's such a tough guy throwing his breakfast away in front of nobody. Like nobody saw how much of a badass he is to throw his breakfast away like that. Like I don't know, that was so weird. Like that was, I mean, it was meant to show us that he's pissed at Dexter. I get it, but I don't know. I just thought that was funny. Like, wow, you really, like, you threw that in the trash like a total badass. Like, fuck you, Dad. I'm not gonna eat your breakfast. No one's here, bro. Like, nobody saw you do that. So no one's sitting there thinking like, man, he must be really pissed. Oh, wow, what a badass. Like, nobody's thinking that because nobody's there. So, overall, I've been enjoying the season. And at the end of the day, I still did enjoy this episode. I know I just shit on it, but, like, I enjoyed the episode because at the end of the day, I like Dexter. I just do. I like Dexter, like the character. I like Dexter. I feel like they've done some great work with Deb this season on this show. Except for when they do the little jokey stuff with the visions. I don't take that out because it just doesn't fit in with the feel of the show at all. Like, stop doing that. But they've done some really good stuff with Deb. I'm really interested in this father son. Like, how do you parent as a serial killer to a potential serial killer? I'm really interested in that. I'm really interested in whatever's going on with Kurt. Like, I find this show to still be very entertaining, but like this episode, man, like, this episode really tried my patience. Not a fan of this week's episode, but I still have confidence that the back half of this season is going to be pretty spectacular. I think we're going to be in for quite a ride, figuring out what's going on with Kurt, figuring out what's happening with Harrison and Dexter, and then, as usual, watching Dexter narrowly escape being caught. And who knows? I mean, maybe he will ultimately get caught or get killed at the end of the show. So we'll see. But until next week, peace.